Okay, good morning. We'll start in a moment. Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're holding in the chapter 50 of Tanya, which the Alter Rebbe introduces us to the concept of the Ratzoi and the Shuv, that the Abishter put a body and soul together, a shama and a guf. The body is physical and enjoys the physicality and wants to stay in the physical world, and the neshama has a ratzui lelakus, has a great desire to go and connect himself to godliness. And the Alter Rebbe says that he has such a ava, there's such a love of the neshama that it has a great desire to go above, that it has a ava kirish peyesh. It calls it in Tanya. It's a love like a burning fire. And this burning fire wants to go above. And then he introduced us to Shira Salavim, the aspect of a niggin, the aspect of a shira, of a song. I want to start off this class by singing, by not singing together, but by bringing you two songs. The first song, which was composed by the Alter Rebbe himself, which was called Dalet Bavos, the four levels, which he said through this song, your neshama will have a journey of the four worlds: the world of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, the world of emanation, the world of creation, the world of formation, and the world of action. And this song is such a special song that by Chabad we sing this only on very, very special occasions, like a chasana under the chuppah, where we bring the shamis, which we know it's brought down that we bring souls from the upper world to the lower world. And therefore, it's a very powerful niggin. And I want you, as we play this niggin, that if you close your eyes and you listen carefully to the notes of this niggin, this song. And then I'm going to play for you, which is called the Niggin HaBeinani, which was composed by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, which he said this is the niggin, the song of the soul of a Beinani, which we're learning the Tanya. Tanya is called the Sefer Shal Beinanim, which is the song of the journey of the neshama, the struggle of the soul, which is the journey of the soul of a Beinani, which struggles in this world and wants to go higher, but goes back down and goes higher and goes back down. I want you to listen to these two nigunim, and really to listen to a niggin, you need to concentrate on it. Therefore, the best thing would be to close your eyes and listen to the niggin, listen to this beautiful song. We're going to start off with the niggin, the song of the Alter Rebbe, the four stanzas, Dalet Bavos. That's the niggin of the Alter Rebbe. We're going to go now to the niggin, the song of the Frierdiker Rebbe, who composed what's called the niggin Habeinini, the niggin, the song of the middle man, and how the middle man, the Beinini, as explained in Tanya, has a yearning and a struggle with the life that he's in and the life that he really wants to be. And this is also a beautiful niggin. As you saw, that song was sung by a chuppah with a beautiful orchestra. I have now a chassid singing the niggin of the Frierdiker Lubavitcher Rebbe, which is called the niggin Habeinini. It's a dveikistik niggin. It's not a sad niggin. Both of these nigunim are not sad nigunim. They are deep nigunim. They are deep songs, and they are supposed to awaken up within us some feeling and desire of our own journey and our own struggles in life. Give your full attention to this beautiful niggin, the niggin Habeinini, the Beinini niggin of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Ram Yama Mama Moidaram Ailararam O Yo Ira Ram Ram Yama Mama Moidaram O Yo Yama Mama Yama Mama Moiraram Oiraram Oirairam Yailairam Yama Mama Moiraram Oiraram Yailaram Iram Hailaro Iram Yamamo Iram Iram Yailaro Iram Ailaro Iram Yailaro Iram Iram Tiriyama Mama Ho Iraram Ho Ram Iram Hiraya Yama Mama Iraram Iraram Irai Iram Ailarom Iram Ailarom Iram Irarom.
Okay, so those are the two nigunim that I shared with you today, which the Alter Rebbe talks about in this chapter of Tanya, where he talks about the Ratzei V'Shuv, the desire for a Yid, for a neshama to go above and at the same time, the importance of the neshama coming down into a physical world. I want to ask also if those that are on Zoom, they can show their faces. We can learn face to face, a learning of face to face. If you have nothing to hide, you can show your face. Don't be hide behind a black screen. But let's continue. So let's continue to learn. We can see a face, so we can learn panim upon him. That's what the Moshe Rabbeinu asked by God. There should be a face-to-face learning. So Zoom gives us that capability, and to be able to see each other's expressions and see each other's faces. Okay, let's continue. Let's go into the Tanya. Without it, Rebbe is such a beautiful teaching in chapter 50 of Tanya, and he teaches us this aspect of where a Jew doesn't, a Yid has this two obligations that God gives him, that he gives him the obligation to search for godliness and to reach out to God and to become one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one with God. And that really is a journey out of body, so to say, experience. It's a journey of the soul, the way he goes out into a spiritual dimension. And at the same moment, the Eibishter wanted the concept of a shuv, where the neshama would come back into a guf, because God wanted dira b'tachtonim. God wanted the concept where he would be able to have a dira, a dwelling place in this world. And a Jew, self-understood, is the one who accomplishes, a human being in general, is the one who accomplishes this dira b'tachtonim, to be able to bring God into the world, into a physical world. That is what we accomplish in this world. And therefore, actually in today's chitas, in today's learning of Chumash, the Rashi says that we find an unbelievable thing by Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, Jacob our father, called when he was traveling to Padan Aram, when he was traveling to Charan, he stopped off in Yerushalayim or in Bet El, and God brought him Yerushalayim to him, and he woke up and he said, wow, how awesome, how awesome is this place. This is the house of God and the gateway to heaven. And it's interesting, now she says that we find that all three patriarchs came to the exact same place. Avram Avinu came to Har Moriah, to Mount Moriah. Yitzchak Avinu, it says, he went out to the field, and it's brought down that the field that meant Mount Moriah. And Yaakov Avinu slept. He slept that night on Mount Moriah. And each one called it something else. Avram Avinu, Abraham called it a Har, a mountain. Yitzchak Avinu called it a Sada, which is a field. And Yaakov Avinu called it a Bayis. Called it Ein Zekim, Beis Elikim. This is the house of God, which ultimately the Beis Hamikdash would be built. But why does Yaakov Avinu call it a Bayis? Because Yaakov Avinu understood that to bring godliness to the world, you have to make a Bayis. You have to make a physical home. As the Torah ultimately says later on in the book of Exodus, the Torah commands a Jew, "V'asu li migdash," make for me a tabernacle, a physical bayis, v'shachanti b'seicham, so I'll dwell in this bayis. That's the greatest shuv. That's the greatest concept of bringing God in the most physical domain space, because a bayis, a house, is confined. How big of a house you're going to make? It's still going to be a confined area, and it has a dimension. It has walls, it has a floor, it has a roof, which creates it as a bayis. And this concept, when you say the Eibishter, God, to be able to bring him down, not in a Hara mountain, you can go to Mount Everest or Sada, a field, who knows the limitations of a field, a bayis, to bring him into a house, is really what Yaakov Avinu taught, is the concept of bringing the Eibishter down into a Dava Gashmi, into something that has makom, that space and time is totally connected to it. And that's the greatest shuv, the greatest return that you can have. To be able to bring the Eibishter into a mitzvah, into a physical world that has dimension, a physical dimension, a dimension of space, and it has walls around it, and it has a roof over it. That is the ultimate shuv, the ultimate return that a Jew can accomplish in this world. And that's why ultimately Shlomo Melech said that the Eibishter fills the world. But nevertheless, he's found dafka, he's found specifically he's found specifically in this home, in the Beis HaMikdash. And not only is he found physically in the Beis HaMikdash, but he's actually found physically in the Kodesh Kodeshim, in the Holy of Holies, and he's heard B'bein Shnei HaKeruvim, and he specifically heard from a very specific place, from an ordering that was exactly 2.5 cubits by 2.5 cubits. And even from there, he's heard from Bein Shnei HaKeruvim, he's heard from in between the two cherubim. So the Eibishter, who's Ein Sof, who's infinite, still wants to come down in the most finite aspect in this world. And he wants to have it in a place of 2.5 cubits by 2.5 cubits. It shouldn't even be a whole cubit. It should be a 2.5 cubit by 2.5 cubits. Because by the Eibishter has been doing is important that every limited space, however you want to limit it to a cubit, even to a half a cubit, that's where you're going to find God. A person should not say, I can only find God in the spiritual realms. I have to make this rotzei. I have to have this love of God in the spiritual realm. No. How much you're going to have the rotzei, how much you're going to have the yearning, and you're going to have the journey above, you need to shuv. You need to return, because in the return, where the neshama is going to come down into a guf, into a physical body, and the neshama is going to accomplish in the physical body, that's where you're going to ultimately find the ultimate essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's where you're going to find the essence of God. So the Alter Rebbe over here is teaching us about that. We are holding in chapter 50, I believe. Let me see if I can find the chapter again. Let me find the Tanya. A second. So here we're holding it, Tanya. That's where we started last week. This is, however, we ended last week. This, however, another level of love that accepts all of the above, as gold is superior to silver. This is a love like a glowing coal of fire. The bechinas, which is derived from the level of the higher gevurot, of the higher bina, because the more you understand about godliness, the more you comprehend, bina is understanding, the more you comprehend about godliness, the more you have the capability of this concept to affect my emotions. And I should have a avas Hashem when I say when I say I'm going to love God with all my heart, I should really love the Eibishter with all my heart. And it should be a serious aspect of Ava. It should be a real concept of Ava, a real aspect of love. And after that, it continues. I know this arousal of this love comes through the meditation and the greatness of the intimate one, through the meditation. When a person meditates, he goes higher than himself. He meditates in Gedulas Hashem. The Kula Kamei Klachshiv, which is everything is considered as absolutely nothing. It's like then the soul becomes inflamed and flares up towards the splendor of his greatness in order to gaze upon the glory of the King. To be able to, that means that through my hisbonenus, and therefore my hisbonenus, my contemplation, my meditation, and my understanding brings about an unbelievable desire in my heart. It brings about an unbelievable heart. What happens? It's like a glowing fierce coals of the mighty flame which surges upward. Again, the rotz, it surges upward. And what happens? And it strives to part itself from the wick and the wood which is taking, which it has taken hold. So that's what the neshama wants to do. When we learn Torah, when we have desire, that's why Dustin with the two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, Nadav and Avihu, the two sons of Aaron, had an avatar Kadosh Baruch Hu. They simply had an unbelievable love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And since they had an unbelievable love of God, they went and they became part of, they had an out-of-body experience, and they ultimately left their body. It says the story of the Alter Rebbe, I mentioned last week, the Alter Rebbe, the Mitzvah Magid, gave the Alter Rebbe his son, the Avraham Malach, to learn with. And it says the Alter Rebbe, sometimes after learning, would then go take a piece of bread and butter, and he would smear on the butter on the bread and make and wash and eat the bagel. And the Avraham Malach said, "How can you have to learn such spirituality? Then go eat a davar gashmi. Then go not only eat a davar gashmi, but actually eat a piece of bread and butter. Why? How would you go from that to that?" And the Alter Rebbe said, "That's the point. You're right. The learning is so deep. The learning is so unbelievable, connective that I want to leave my body. I want to go Lamaila. I want to be able to strive in spirituality. I love this subject, and therefore, dafka, I go and eat a piece of bread and with butter to bring my neshama down to the world, to tell my neshama, you're right. You want to go above. You want to strive in the heavens. But no, you have to come down to the land. You have to come down to the real world because you need to affect the real world." The Rebbe would always tell the story of the Alter Rebbe, that the Alter Rebbe on Yom Kippur, one Yom Kippur, the Alter Rebbe was davening in Yom Kippur in Shul with the whole crowd. Imagine Yom Kippur, and suddenly he took off his talis. And he left the building. Middle of davening, he left the building, and he went to the edge of town. And he knocked on the door, and there was a woman that had a baby, and the house was empty. This woman was not well. And he went on Yom Kippur, and he chopped wood, and he put up a fire, and he cooked this woman some food, and he fed her. And when he fed her, after he fed her, he went back to shul. He went back to shul in Yom Kippur. And can you imagine? The Alter Rebbe could have sent somebody else. He could have sent a lot of people to help this woman. No, the Alter Rebbe left his prayer, left the time of his prayer. Even though on Yom Kippur, the holiest day, and the Alter Rebbe understood the concept of Yom Kippur, he understood the concept of the praise of Yom Kippur, but he closed his book, took off his talis, and went to help a person. Because that's the ultimate. What is worth the prayer if you cannot help it? There's a person in need. And you say, I'm too busy praying. I'm right now in a holy state. I'm right now in the highest world. If you cannot bring it down to help a yid, to help a woman, on Yom Kippur, to help her, what's the whole purpose of the spiritual elevation? I say the story of the Alter Rebbe and his son, the Mittel Rebbe, that they used to live on two different stories. The Alter Rebbe lived upstairs, and the Mittel Rebbe, his son, lived downstairs. The Mittel Rebbe was a great thinker, and once the Mittel Rebbe wife left the house, and she left her husband to babysit the baby. And the Mittel Rebbe started to think Chassidus, and the baby fell out of the bed, and he was crying, but he was in a different world. His Zayda upstairs, the Alter Rebbe was also upstairs, and he was learning whatever, and he heard the baby, he heard his grandson crying, He went downstairs, passed his son, the Mittler Rebbe, who was thinking a maima, a discourse, and he picked up his grandson, he soothed him, and put him back to bed. Later on, the next day, the Alter Rebbe told his son, "Didn't you hear your son crying?" He said, "No, I was thinking some Torah. I didn't hear anything." So the Alter Rebbe told his son, "If you cannot hear a Yiddish kid cry, so what's worth the whole philosophy? What is worth the whole machshava if you cannot hear a Yiddish cry of a Yiddish kid?" That's the shuv. Yeah, we can have a spiritual high, and we should have a spiritual high. But our spiritual high should bring us down to what's the purpose of the spiritual high. The spiritual high is to have a comeback, to be able to come back to the physical sense. So here the Alter Rebbe is still going into spiritual high. So this is from the prominent element of the divine fire. That's a divine soul. Divine soul, that's what it's called. It's called Hinei Hashem Nishmas Adam. It says the candle of God is the soul of man. So the soul of man, the godly soul of man, is compared to a fire, to a flame. It's a flickering flame. And this fire, it's hot, it's warm, it constantly wants to move. That's the beauty of the godly soul. It constantly wants to move from stronger to better. The soul, the godly soul, is never happy with status quo. He's never happy with doing nothing. He's never happy with looking downwards. That's not the godly soul. That's my animalistic soul. My animalistic soul is happy with the way he is. My animalistic soul always wants to look at people that he thinks he's better because there's people that are worse than him. So he says, okay, how bad I am, there's worse people out there. So I'm not so bad. The godly soul always looks, there's better people out there. If there's better people out there, I got to strive, I have to work harder. And when I reach up to those people, there's even better people. And there's no limit to that concept. Because the godly soul always wants more and more and more godliness. And he's never satisfied. That's what the Rebbe says. When it comes to physicality, that's an unbelievable concept. Who is wealthy, who's happy with what he has, is an unbelievable concept in the physical world. If you want to have happiness, be satisfied with what you have. But in the spiritual world, that is the worst situation. That a person should be happy what he has is not a good thing in the spiritual world. So my godly soul, as much excitement as I have in a spiritual concept, there's even a greater spiritual concept. There's even a deeper aspect of this song. There's deeper songs. There's more Debekis songs. And this comes to thirst. Now you understand why David HaMelech was called Ne'im Zemirei Yisrael. David HaMelech was a composer of music. He was a composer of psalms. He was a composer of music. And because of that, he said, Samalacha Nafshi. He says, my soul is thirsty for you. The more I say Tillim, the more I compose these songs, the more I become wanting to have this love of God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then it reaches to a level of lovesickness. And then it reaches to a level, comes to a virtual expiring of the soul. As it says, my soul expires. I'm done. I'm out of this world. I want a spiritual relationship with God. Everything else is irrelevant. My whole yearning, my whole desire, my whole purpose is godliness. That is the desire of each and every one of our souls. You don't have to be a tzaddik to have that yearning. My neshama has it. Your neshama has it. Each and every one of our neshamas have this yearning of the neshama. have this simon. Nobody can take away this unbelievable desire that each and every one of us has. We have to reveal it. That's our obligation, is to reveal this simon, which we learned in Tanya a long time ago, Ava Misoteres, the hidden love that each and every one of us has in this world. That each and every one of us has a hidden Ava, has a hidden love in this world. So he says, from here, we see the higher level of Gevuras Hayabina derive the source of the service of the Levium below in this world. And also Lavi that Izal says in the future, when the world will be elevated, they will be Kehanim. That they will come Kehanim. They will come the priests. As our master, your blessed memory, commented on the verse, but the Kehanim, the Levites, that the Levites today will become Kehanim in the future. Why? Because they reached up, the Leviim, through a niggin, through a song. They have they have reached up higher levels than even the Kehanim through their service. The Levite service of God was to raise their voices in melody and thanksgiving with song and music, tunefulness and harmony. And that concept is a much powerful, more powerful aspect than even the physical avodah of the Kehanim. This music progresses in a manner of advance and retreat, Ratzui and Shuf. I think I mentioned last week that by Chabad we have by Birchas Kehanim, we sing a niggin. We have a niggin. Ay, 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 ay. If you ever was in a Chabad shul, you'll hear this niggin by Yontiv. They sing a song by the song of the Kehanim. I think the Mittel Rebbe said this was a niggin of the Levium in the Beis Hamikdash. Such is the nature of this intense love, like a flame that flashes out of Bazak, as mentioned in the Gemara in Chagiga. So over there, the Gemara talks about that there was a extremely strong flame that would in the Beis Hamikdash, the fire on the altar would constantly go above, a connection above, in a straight column above, and its fire came down from heaven and returned to heaven, so to say, the connection of this fire that was on the altar. It's impossible to explain this subject in clearly writing, yet every person with a feeling in a heart who is understanding and intelligent in the grasping a subject, and delves deeply to attach his mind and his understanding to God, will find goodness and light concealed within his intelligent soul according to his capacity. And therefore, yesh mispal v'yesh mispal, meaning there are some who are affected and there are some who are affected. Every person according to their capacity. Each and every one according to his capacity. That's the way he's going to win faith. You want to be affected, you'll be affected. You want to learn, you want to be able to have this relationship, you can have this relationship. You don't want to have this relationship, you don't have to have this relationship. I said a story yesterday of the Baal Shem Tov in the shul. It's a beautiful story. I heard the story. As I said yesterday, I heard the beginning. Maybe everybody heard the beginning of the story. I didn't hear the end of the story. And the story is told of Baal Shem Tov. And once came a yid to the Baal Shem Tov, crying to the Baal Shem Tov that he needed to have pashut money. He had no parnasa, and he was marrying off a child, and he needed to have a lot of money. He was destitute. So Baal Shem Tov heard the cry of this Jew. He opened his drawer, and he gave the Jew 100 ruble. And he said to him, the first person that offers you a sale, buy it. The first person that offers you a sale, buy it. The Yid took the 100 ruble and he went the way home. It was getting late, so he stopped into an inn and he went over to the inn guy. He said, "How much cost the room for the night?" So the guy said, 100 ruble. So he cannot use the 100. All he had was that 100 ruble. Because I cannot use that 100 ruble. It's not the first sale. Then I won't want to buy it in a sale. So he went to sleep on the bench. As he was sleeping, a bunch of guys came into the bar, into the inn, came to the bar. All sat down, they're drinking, a bunch of chevra Jews. And they were laughing and making jokes. And then one of them said, in a joking manner, he says, if anybody wants to buy from me my Olam Haba, my will to come, I'll sell it to you for 100 ruble. The guy sleeping on the bench awakens. He hears that the sale of the day. This was the first sale. He gets up, he runs over to the guy. He says, "You serious? You're selling me the Olam Haba for 100 ruble?" The guy says, "Yeah, 100 ruble." Gives him the 100 ruble. He says, "Listen, it's a sale. You got to write your contract. You got to write it up." He takes a napkin out. He writes, "I hereby sell," what's your name? Yankel, "I sell you my Olam Haba, 100 ruble. You gave me 100 ruble. He signs it. He says, "Have a good day." And they both go on their ways. Olam Haba, the will to come. Sell my will to come for 100 ruble, for $100. So they both come home. And they'll come home. The guy made his first sale. His first transaction, business deal. And he gave away his 100 ruble. He has a piece of paper. What's not going to get him anywhere? So the other guy comes home and jokingly tells his wife, "I sold my Olam Haba for 100 ruble." His wife says, "You crazy? Sold your Olam Haba for 100 ruble? Well, I'm going to live with a guy who sold his will to come. I don't want to live with you. Go and buy back the Olam Haba." I said, "You serious?" He says, "Yeah. You got to go and you got to buy back your Olam Haba, your will to come. If not, out of here. I'm out of here. I'm not living with a guy who has no Olam Haba." He says, "How much I buy back?" I said, "Yeah, I don't care how much. Whatever the guy wants. You don't come home until you have that piece of paper that you bought back your Olam Haba. Okay, don't come home." Okay, the guy, we're gonna find the guy. The guy travels, he finds the guy, comes to his house. He says, "You remember me? You have my paper. I sold you the Olam Haba." He says, "Yeah." He says, "Okay, I want to buy it back from you." "Okay, how much do you want to pay for it?" He said, "I'll give you 100 ruble." "What do you mean?" "I'll give you back 100 ruble. Give me back the piece of paper." The guy says, No. So I'll give you 200 ruble. "No, 1,000 ruble." And it keeps on going higher. The guy said, "No, this is expensive. Olam Haba is not a cheap thing. Will to come is not a cheap thing." Well, the story says the guy ultimately bought it back for like 200,000 ruble, 250,000 ruble. He bought it back for 250,000 ruble. He had no choice. Wife's not going to let him into the house. So he bought it back. Now the guy became wealthy. He pushed it out 250,000 ruble. Wow, that was a great business transaction. Unbelievable sale. A couple of days later, the guy's feeling bad. He's feeling bad that he maybe ripped off this Jew for $250,000 for Olam Haba, the will to come. Maybe he ripped him off. So he went back to the Baal Shem Tov. He said, "Thank you very much. Your deal worked well. I bought Olam Haba for 100,000. I sold it back for 250,000. Must have been special. But it's really bothering me. First of all, if the Olam Haba is not worth 250,000, so then I ripped the guy off. And if the Olam Haba is worth 250,000, how did I buy it for 100 ruble? So something is not sitting well with me. I feel like basically I this money is not clean. This money I took money from another Jew. With really I shouldn't have done this, because is this Olam Haba worth 250,000 ruble, or is Olam Haba worth 100 ruble? What is it worth? So this is what the Baal Shem Tov answered him. No, my friend. The Olam Haba is worth what the person felt his Olam Haba is worth. So in the beginning of the story, he felt it's worth 100 ruble, and that's what it was worth. At the end of the story, he felt his Olam Haba is worth 250,000 ruble. Now that's what it's worth. And what's the lesson? The lesson is everything in life It depends on what you feel it's worth. What is worth this mitzvah? That's why the Mishnah says everybody should calculate what is the value of a mitzvah and consider it to its loss. What is the value of this mitzvah? Is it worth $100 or is it worth $250,000? Whatever a Jew is going to evaluate the mitzvah, that's going to be its worth. And therefore, the truth is, every one of us can evaluate every mitzvah. To me, a mitzvah is worth $100. To you, that mitzvah is worth $200,000. That's what it's worth. And that's the value. And that's going to be your elam, so to say. That's going to be the value. What you put in, the ava, the worth that you put in to the mitzvah. What is if it's important to you, then the mitzvah is important. Then the mitzvah has unbelievable value. If it's not important to you, it's not worth anything. It has no value. It has no value to you. It might be valuable to somebody else, but it seemingly at this present time has no value to me. And therefore, it's worth $10, and therefore I can go buy it. Why? Because it's only worth $10. What is its value? It's $10. But maybe it's worth $20,000. That's up to me. It's up to me to decide what is the value of the mitzvah. It's a beautiful story, and it's a beautiful Musa Haskell, so to say, a teaching in the way that I am supposed to have a rotzui, a desire to any mitzvah that I do, or to any situation I do. What is my rotzui? What is my desire? What is my ava in this situation? What is my ava in this? It's up to me. So the way I evaluate it, that's going to be my ava. That's why everything comes through understanding. The way I understand this concept, that's the way I'm going to have an ava to it. If I don't understand the concept, it has nothing to do with me, so I won't have an ava to it. So I'll do it. I might do it. I'm a frum yid. So I'll daven and I'll do it, but it has no value. Plus, it has it's worth $100. If it was worth to me $250,000, I would have such an ava, right? We would all have an unbelievable ava. If you would understand by saying this krishma, davening this davening, I'll make $100,000. Everybody would have a great love to it. That's what the Eibishter says in essence. I'm giving everybody an ava to this. It's up to you, it's up to me to decide at this present time, how much is this ava worth it? What is the value of this love to this mitzvah? What's the value? And the more I'm going to have an understanding in the mitzvah, the more value this mitzvah is going to have to me. And the more I'm going to do the mitzvah. And not only the more I'll do the mitzvah, but I'll do the mitzvah. I'll do this mitzvah with such ava, with such excitement, because this is a valuable thing to me. This might be I can't even put a number to it. It has such a value. It has no number to the value of this mitzvah. Same story, the Gemara. The Gemara says that used to be this princess who would talk to Rabbi Akiva, a Roman princess, who would talk to Rabbi Akiva, argue with him. And the Gemara writes down their conversations. And in one conversation, she turns to Rabbi Akiva and she says, I don't understand that the Yidden took Nasiv and Ishma. They said, we will do and we will understand. I mean, they were ready to do whatever the Eibishter says, even before he told them. So he said, the Eibishter could have given you 1,000,000 mitzvahs. What would happen? God would have given you 1,000,000 mitzvahs. So you already said Nasiv and Ishma. You already said you're going to do. So now, how do you say such a statement we're going to do, even before you know how many mitzvahs that God is going to give you? So Rabbi Akiva said, you're right. If you don't have Ava, if you don't have Avas Hashem, then you're going to have to say, wait a second, how many mitzvahs? I don't know. It's too much. I'm doing this out of necessity. You know, I cannot do 100, and you cannot burden me with too many. Right? I'm a human being. So give me X amount of mitzvahs. You know, don't give me too much. But when there's Ava, when there's an Ava The Yidden has such an ava to the Eibishter, doesn't make a difference how much. It doesn't make a difference how many. It doesn't make a difference what is the obligation. The Yidden has such an ava to the Eibishter at that time, and Yidden till today has such an ava to the Eibishter. It doesn't important that it would be 630, it will be 6 million. The number is irrelevant. Because I have an ava to the Eibishter. And that's the truth. Yidden have an ava to the Eibishter. Jews have an ava to God from Matan Torah, that it's not important to us, the number. It's important to us that the love of the Eibishter wants. Whatever God wants. I have an ava. My soul is in thirst for you. So what's the difference? What you're going to ask me or what you're not going to ask me, it's irrelevant. It's not important when I have Avas Hashem. And that's why the Ratzah is important. That's why the Alter Rebbe, actually in Chitas today, the Alter Rebbe teaches us that the concept of learning about God, the Shema Yisrael, Hero Israel, Lord is our God, to know Ladas Hashem, to know God, to be able to go into the spiritual realms of things is important to us. It's a mitzvah, actually. Ladas Hashem, to know God. And each and every one of us has to learn about godliness. We need to learn Chassidus every day. We need to learn Chassidus. We need to learn Chassidus. Simple as that. We need to learn about godliness. And that every single day we should learn about godliness. Because that will create an Aval Hashem, a love of God, a love of God. And we all have that love of God. It's not going to create a love of God. It's going to reveal the love of God. Because we learned to Chassidus that we all have a love of God. We just have to be able to reveal it. The only way we can reveal this Aval Havaya is when we learn. Comes through his bonus, comes through our understanding. The more we understand, the more this Ava that's there already. Because this Ava is a subconscious Ava. This Ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above understanding. So the more we take our mind and we refine our mind from physical understanding to spiritual understanding, then that reveals that Ava. Because we cannot understand a subconscious, a esoteric aspect of love with a physical, total physical understanding. Only understanding the physical nature of things. We have to go and learn Chassidus, which we learn, we find words. I know, especially in the Chitas today, people are telling me that the Chitas of these days are very spiritual words. They're like godly words, they're out of you natural words. That's true. They are. And we need to learn them, and we need to repeat them, and let it sink into our heads. These spiritual concepts, which are above our understanding, and maybe we'll never understand the essence of that word. Maybe we'll never come to the total comprehension of these concepts. It said that what's going to be the difference? What's going to be when a chassid comes, when Mashiach comes? The greatness of a chassid will be, he'll say, aha, now I understand the meaning of what I learned in Chassidus. As the Alter Rebbe these days talk about the Shem Man, Shem Ban, and Shem Sag. These are Kabbalistic concepts, and we bring it in numbers, 63 and 52 and 45. These are all spiritual concepts, which we are talking about, and we're incorporating in our heads, and we don't understand it to the fullest. We're not ready to understand it to the fullest. And Amir Shem will understand it to the fullest. But right now, that refines our mind. And more important, that awakens up that Ava Mesuteres, that awakens up that instinct love, that hidden love, the Ava Kiddush Be'esh, the love that every Jew has to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We need to awaken that love. How are you going to awaken that love if you're going to be stuck only in the world? You need to refine your mind to spiritual concepts. And the more I refine my mind to spiritual concepts, that awakens up that Ava. And I awaken, I have a rotzi, I have a wow, I love it. It's a great concept, it's great spiritual concepts. And I have this love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's go back to the Tanya. We're getting late. I want to try to finish this chapter if it's possible. Let's go back to the Tanya. So, after prefacing this meditation by the fear of sin, the fear of doing wrong by sinning, in order to come utterly removed from evil, withholding oneself from doing any wrong, to avoid your transgression imposed between you and God forbid. So therefore, it says, if you have a understanding and a love of God, automatically you're not going to want to do something bad. Why would anybody want to do something that God is hurting for, right? If I love somebody, and she says, he or she says, don't do something. I say, oh, I don't understand you. I don't comprehend you. But you love me. What's the difference if you comprehend me or don't comprehend me? I'm telling you that this hurts me. And if you love me, you would stop it. So the order of the one's divine service through the occupation of Torah and mitzvahs, a service deriving from intense love, is possible only in a matter of retreat, when the soul withholds itself and expiring in order to fulfill the divine intent, which can only be realized when the soul remains in the body. That's why ultimately the soul has to realize that it has to ultimately transform the body. And that's the shuv. That's the concept of the retreat. As it's written in Sefer Yetzirah, here's some Kabbalistic words. If your heart hastens, return to one. If your heart hastens, your heart is rushing. What does that mean? The heart hastens refers to the craving of the soul that is in the right side of the heart. And he wants to go above what you mentioned in Tanya, the right side of the heart is where your godly soul is. When this craving dominates and bursts into a flame and glows in such rapture that the soul is consumed with the desire, the soul is considered to pour itself out into the embrace of his Father, to its source who gives one's life. And what happens? And he wants to leave the body, the confinement of the corporal and physical body, to attach itself to him, blessed be he. What do you got to do then? One must take to heart the teaching of our sage, the blessed many. You are forced to live. That's it, my friend. The Eibishter wanted, God wanted you to live. If God wanted you to live, you gotta come back home. In this body, to give it life. Why did God want you to live? For the purpose of drawing down a higher life force of the life of blessed be through the life of giving Torah. And what was the purpose of the Torah? Through this, we will be able to will be a dwelling place for the lower worlds, created beings. For He, blessed oneness, is revealed, as explained previous. Let's learn a little more. As it's brought down the Zohar, that there be one in one, meaning that the unity which is hidden, the one of the higher spiritual worlds or levels, shall become an aspect in the revealed world, becoming manifestation one of the lower worlds and the higher worlds. So that's Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Now we understand why we say God on Friday night. We said L'chadoidi, come to meet my bride. L'chadoidi, denoting Kiloyt HaNefesh. We go out. This is a form of a love of God. One Kiloyt HaNefesh should be expressed through causing my beloved to come, through the drawing him down. The beloved one, God bless, to the God, so that the godness will be revealed in this nether world. And that's why the last L'chadoidi, we turn around, so to say. Everybody turns around in the synagogue to greet the bride, to greet and to bring him down into this world. And with this, we'll understand what the saying of our sages. It said, we find an interesting expression the Alter Rebbe says. You're forced to live, you're forced to die. So what then should the desire be? Should be, if I'm forced to live and I'm forced to die, what should be my desire? To live or to die? And the truth is, that's the point. To die doesn't mean death. To die means I want a spiritual life. You're forced to live. You're forced to die. You're forced to, your neshama wants to go above, but your neshama needs to be down here. You have to have both entities. When you want to have a spiritual elevation, you got to come down to live. When you want to have only the physical elevation, then no, you're forced to go above yourself. You're forced both. You have both of these entities at the same time. You're forced, your neshama wants to go above, it wants to go at an out-of-body experience. Remember, you're forced to live. Oh, your neshama gets lost in the physical world. No, remember, you're forced to have an out-of-body experience. As explained the length of Mishnah Zu, you're forced to live, and with the help of them, I'm sorry, an expression you're forced to live with the help of the life of life. Oh, what we ended the chapter 50 of Tanya, beautiful chapter. And Mitcham, next week we will go into the 51st chapter of Tanya, which the Alter Rebbe talks about the greatness of the Shachanti B'Seicham, the greatness of the Regal, the Shuv. What is the concept? If the whole aspect of the Neshama is to go above, what is the true concept of the Shuv, the return, where God says, the Shachanti B'Seicham, I want to dwell in your midst. As I started today's class with the concept of Yaakov Avinu, the Yaakov Avinu specifically called it a bias, called it a house. Why? If we have such a tzimoyin like Kadosh Baruch Hu, why if we have such a delight in godliness, which is above the world, why would there be important a tzimoyin, an aspect of the bias to bring the Eibush down, specifically in a makom gashmi, in a physical world? The shuv is as important. So that's why we're going to continue Mircham next week, Sunday, 10 o'clock, when we'll start chapter 51. We're slowly coming to the end of the Tanya, which ends with chapter 53. I wish you a beautiful and wonderful Sunday. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful, beautiful week. God bless you all. And keep on learning Chassidus every single day. If you want to come to Mircham tomorrow, 8 o'clock, we'll in Chitas, which is Chumash and Tanya. And these days, Tanya, are very spiritual concepts. So hopefully I'll see you there tomorrow at 8 a.m. Have a wonderful, anybody want to ask a question? If you want, I'm going to get off Facebook. I'll get up to Facebook. If anybody has a question,